Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Beneath the solitary streetlight, a streak of silver marred the otherwise flawless ebony surface of a high-performance automobile. Startled by the sight, the anxious observer couldn't help but notice the distinct license plate, a reserved tag, KNGPIN, undoubtedly linked to the feared crime boss Maxwell Torres and his Red Serpent gang. "This can't be real," the nervous young man murmured, his eyes darting around the desolate parking area. In a moment of carelessness, his unassuming car had sideswiped this rare, gleaming specimen, leaving an irremovable scratch. The potential consequences of such an act dawned on him, and a shiver ran down his spine. He could just leave, but Torres had cameras everywhere in his territory, and this restaurant parking lot was definitely his turf. It wouldn't take long for the gang to identify his car, his face, his address. Fumbling with his phone, he called the only person who might understand his desperation.
"Emma, it's me. I need help. I'm in serious trouble."
His sister's voice came through, immediately concerned. "Ryder, what happened?" "I scratched Maxwell Torres's car. The gang leader. He's going to kill me." A sharp intake of breath.
"Come over. Now."
30 minutes later, Ryder paced around his sister's apartment, hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the coffee mug she'd given him. "Torres knows what I look like, Emma. His men saw me at the restaurant before I parked. They'll find me." Emma watched her brother with thoughtful eyes. At 32, she was 4 years his senior and had always been the practical one. "You need to disappear for a while," she said finally. "How? I can't afford to leave town, and they'll find me at my apartment." Emma's gaze traveled slowly from Ryder's face, down to his slender build, the narrow shoulders, slim hips, and delicate features that had often led to him being mistaken for younger than his 28 years. "What if they can't recognize you?" she said, an idea forming. "What if you become someone else entirely?" Ryder stopped pacing. "What do you mean?" She smiled, a plan crystallizing. "Torres and his men are looking for a brown-haired man named Ryder. What if instead they met a woman they'd never seen before?"
"This is insane,"
Ryder muttered, staring at his reflection in Emma's full-length mirror. The stranger staring back wore a pink floral dress that flowed just past the knees, accentuating a figure that padding in strategic places had given surprising curves. "Hold still," Emma commanded, applying a final touch of mascara to his already transformed eyes. She stepped back to admire her work. "You know, with your features, this isn't even difficult. You look amazing." Amazing wasn't the word Ryder would have chosen. Unrecognizable, yes. The brown wig his sister had styled into soft waves framed a face subtly contoured to enhance his natural bone structure. The makeup wasn't excessive, just enough to soften his features and draw attention to his eyes.
"The dress is a bit much, isn't it?"
He smoothed the silky fabric, surprised by how pleasant it felt against his skin.
"It's perfect. Torres would never suspect. Now we need to practice your voice and mannerisms."
For the next hour, Emma coached him on walking in the low heels she'd provided, speaking in a softer register and adjusting his posture. By midnight, Adeline was born, the name chosen from a character in one of their favorite childhood books. "Tomorrow night," Emma said, "you'll meet Torres at the club where he asked you to discuss the damage. Except it won't be Ryder showing up. It'll be Adeline, just another woman at the bar who has no idea who this gang leader even is." Ryder nodded, still stunned by the transformation. The plan was to avoid detection long enough for Torres to forget about the incident, then gradually return to normal life. Simple enough. What he didn't expect was the strange sense of comfort he felt in this new skin. The Black Diamond Club pulsed with music and colored lights. Seated at the bar in a navy blue dress that Emma had insisted was classy but approachable, Ryder, now Adeline, sipped at a cocktail, acutely aware of every glance in her direction. The brown wig felt secure, styled tonight in a sleek, straight look that fell past her shoulders. Emma had spent hours teaching her how to manage these feminine accessories, from the simple gold earrings to the subtle application of lipstick. "Is this seat taken?" a deep voice asked. Looking up, Adeline nearly choked on her drink. Maxwell Torres stood beside her, imposing in an expensive charcoal suit, his presence commanding attention from everyone nearby. Up close, the gang leader was even more intimidating. Tall, with broad shoulders and a face marked by a thin scar across his right cheek. "No, it's free," she replied, careful to maintain the higher, softer voice she'd practiced. Torres sat down, signaling the bartender.
"I'll have my usual, and another of whatever the lady is drinking."
This wasn't part of the plan. Torres was supposed to be meeting Ryder, not chatting up Adeline. Had he already figured out who she was? "I don't accept drinks from strangers," she said, attempting to sound confident. Torres smiled, revealing perfect teeth. "Maxwell Torres. Now we're not strangers." "Adeline," she replied, deciding to stick to the simple truth to avoid slipping up. "Are you waiting for someone, Adeline?" His eyes, dark and calculating, studied her face. "Just enjoying a night out," she answered, heart racing beneath the carefully selected padded bra. "I needed a break from my routine." "Interesting coincidence," Torres commented, accepting his drink from the bartender. "I was supposed to meet someone here tonight, but they seem to have stood me up." Adeline feigned ignorance. "Business meeting at a club? Must be an interesting line of work." "You could say that." He raised his glass slightly. "To new acquaintances." She cautiously clinked her glass against his, mind racing. Every instinct screamed danger, yet Torres showed no sign of recognition. The disguise was working. "So," Torres continued, "what brings a woman like you to a place like this alone?" An hour later, Adeline found herself still engaged in conversation with the notorious criminal, who seemed genuinely interested in her fabricated life story. The carefully constructed background, an administrative assistant new to the city, flowed naturally from her lips, each detail rehearsed with Emma. "You have an interesting perspective, Adeline," Torres commented, after she'd offered an opinion on a local art exhibit they'd discussed. "Most people tell me what they think I want to hear." "Perhaps they're intimidated by you," she suggested, feeling increasingly confident in her role. Torres laughed. "Perceptive. I like that." He glanced at his watch. "Unfortunately, I have another engagement. Would you consider joining me for dinner tomorrow night?" The invitation caught her completely off guard. Before you answer," he interrupted smoothly, "I should mention that I've become quite selective about my company these days. You're refreshing." Adeline hesitated. Prolonging contact with Torres seemed dangerous, yet refusing might raise suspicion. Plus, this could be an opportunity to learn when he might call off the search for Ryder. "I'd like that," she finally answered. Torres's smile widened. "Excellent. I'll send a car for you at 8. He pulled out a business card and a pen. "Your address?" With trembling fingers, Adeline wrote down Emma's address, figuring her sister could help her prepare again. As Torres departed with a gentlemanly nod, she released a shaky breath. The evening had gone nothing like expected, but the disguise had worked perfectly. Too perfectly. "You did what?" Emma nearly shouted when Adeline returned to her apartment and explained what had happened. "I didn't have a choice," Adeline defended, carefully removing the gold earrings. "If I refused, he might have gotten suspicious." Emma paced the living room. This was supposed to be a one-time thing to avoid him recognizing you, not the beginning of a dating relationship with a criminal kingpin. "It's not dating," Adeline insisted, though the words felt hollow even to her. "It's gathering intelligence. Once I know he's given up on finding Ryder, I can disappear." Emma stopped pacing, giving her brother-turned-sister a long look. "You know, you haven't once complained about the dress or the heels or any of this." She gestured toward Adeline's outfit. "Most guys would be counting the seconds until they could tear off the wig." The observation hit Adeline unexpectedly hard. She glanced down at the navy blue dress, realizing she hadn't given a single thought to changing out of it since arriving. "It's comfortable," she admitted quietly. "Is that weird?" Emma's expression softened. "No, not weird, just something to think about." She sat down next to Adeline on the couch. "Look, I'll help you with tomorrow night, but be careful. Torres isn't just dangerous because he's a criminal. He's dangerous because he's smart." Adeline nodded, fingers absently stroking the silky fabric of her dress. "I know. This will be the last time, I promise." But even as she said it, a part of her, a part she wasn't ready to examine, hoped it wouldn't be. One dinner turned into 2, then 3. With each meeting, Adeline grew more comfortable in her role, or perhaps it was becoming less of a role and more of a reality. The brown wig, once strange, now felt natural against her neck and shoulders. The dresses and blouses Emma had loaned her began to feel like her own wardrobe. 2 weeks after their first encounter, Torres invited her to accompany him to a gallery opening, a public event where many would see them together. "Is this wise?" Emma asked, helping Adeline into an elegant black dress with a modest neckline and a hem that fell just below the knee. "The more people who see you with him, the more complicated this gets." "I know what I'm doing," Adeline replied, though uncertainty gnawed at her. The truth was, she enjoyed being Adeline, enjoyed the graceful movement of the dresses, the ritual of applying makeup, the gentleness with which Torres treated her compared to how men had treated Ryder. At the gallery, Torres introduced her to associates, business partners, and even a few city officials who nervously shook her hand. With each introduction, Adeline's alter ego solidified, gaining history and personality beyond what she and Emma had invented. "You're a natural at this," Torres commented quietly as they examined a modern sculpture. "Most people find these events tedious." "I'm enjoying myself," she replied honestly. The art was fascinating, and there was something liberating about navigating the social complexities of the evening as Adeline, rather than Ryder. Later that night, as Torres's driver took them back to Emma's apartment building, he turned to her. "I have a confession to make." Her heart stuttered. "Oh?" "The night we met at the Black Diamond. I wasn't there by chance." He studied her reaction carefully. "I noticed you when you entered. You caught my attention immediately." Relief washed over her. He wasn't confessing to knowing her true identity.
Is that so unusual? You strike me as someone who notices everything. True, but I don't usually change my plans because of what I notice. He took her hand, a gesture that had become familiar over their time together. There's something different about you, Adeline. Something authentic in a world where most people are performing. The irony of his statement wasn't lost on her. She was literally performing a role, yet his words struck a chord. With Torres, with others, even with herself, Adeline felt more authentic than Ryder ever had.
"Thank you for a lovely evening," she said as the car stopped.
Torres leaned forward and gently kissed her cheek. Until next time. Watching the car pull away, Adeline touched the spot where his lips had brushed her skin. A complicated mix of emotions swirling inside her.
"This has gone way beyond the original plan,"
Emma said a month later, helping Adeline select an outfit for yet another evening with Torres.
"You've been Adeline almost more than you've been Ryder lately."
It was true. Ryder now worked remotely most days, emerging only for necessary errands, while Adeline's social calendar had expanded beyond just Torres to include several women she'd met through various events. Emma's closet had proven insufficient, and Adeline had gradually acquired her own wardrobe, delicate blouses in silk and cotton, skirts that swished pleasantly around her legs, dresses in colors that complemented her complexion.
"I know it's complicated,"
Adeline admitted, selecting a forest green blouse that brought out flecks of color in her eyes.
"But I've learned Torres called off the search for the guy who scratched my car weeks ago. He told me himself he decided it wasn't worth the effort for minor damage."
Emma sat on the edge of the bed, watching as Adeline expertly applied mascara, a skill that had once required her sister's assistance, but now came naturally. "So, if there's no danger anymore, why are you still doing this?" The question hung in the air. Adeline's hand paused, mascara wand hovering.
"Because,"
she began, then stopped, searching for words.
"Because when I'm her, when I'm me, like this, everything makes sense in a way it never did before."
Emma nodded slowly. "I've been wondering when you'd realize that." Adeline turned from the mirror.
"You knew?"
"I suspected. The way you took to all of this." She gestured at the vanity table covered with makeup, the closet now filled with women's clothing. It wasn't just good acting. You've been happier as Adeline, more yourself. Tears threatened to ruin the carefully applied mascara. "What does that mean for me?" Emma moved to stand beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It means you have some thinking to do about who you really are. And just so you know, whatever you decide, I'm here for you." That night, as Torres spoke animatedly about plans for a new restaurant he was investing in, Adeline found herself studying him with new awareness. This man knew her as Adeline, only as Adeline, and that identity had never felt false to her. "You seem distracted tonight," Torres observed, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Just thinking about identity," she replied honestly. "How we become who we're meant to be." His eyebrow lifted with interest. "A philosophical evening? I'm intrigued. Do you believe people can change fundamentally, or do we just become more truly ourselves over time?" Torres considered the question, thumb absently stroking the back of her hand. "I believe we all contain multitudes. Sometimes circumstances reveal parts of ourselves we didn't know existed." He smiled. "Why do you ask?" "I'm discovering things about myself I never acknowledged before," she said carefully.
It's both frightening and liberating. The most important journeys often are. His dark eyes held genuine warmth. Whatever you're discovering, Adeline, know that I see you, the real you, and that's who I've come to care for deeply. The words settled into her heart, reinforcing what she had already begun to accept. Adeline wasn't a disguise anymore. She was the truth that had been hiding behind Ryder's facade all along. 3 months into living part-time as Adeline, she made a decision. The brown wig came off, replaced by her natural brown hair that had been growing longer, now styled in a feminine cut that framed her face. Her wardrobe expanded further, clothes selected not out of necessity for a disguise, but as expressions of who she truly was. Torres, still unaware of her origins, noticed the change in hairstyle immediately. "You cut your hair," he commented as they walked through the park on a crisp autumn day. "It suits you. Brings out your features beautifully." She smiled, still marveling at how natural it felt to be herself with him. "Thank you. It feels more like me somehow." "That's what matters." He squeezed her hand. "Being comfortable in your own skin is rare. Many people never achieve it." The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd been uncomfortable in her own skin for years without recognizing why, until circumstance forced her to see herself differently. That evening, after returning from her date, she sat with Emma in the apartment they now shared officially. "I've been reading about gender identity," Adeline said, curled up on the couch in comfortable leggings and an oversized sweater. "About transgender experiences." Emma nodded encouragingly. "And? So many of their stories resonate with me. The disconnect from their assigned gender. The relief when they could express themselves authentically." She took a deep breath. "I think I've always been Adeline inside. Ryder was the disguise, not the other way around." Emma reached over and squeezed her hand. "I think you might be right. So, what's your next step?" "I want to see a gender therapist. I want to understand myself better and explore medical options." She looked down at their clasped hands. "And I want to tell Torres the truth, not about the car, that doesn't matter anymore, but about me, who I am, where I came from." "Are you sure that's safe?" Emma asked, concern furrowing her brow. Adeline nodded. "He's not who I thought he was either. Yes, he operates outside the law in many ways, but there's goodness in him too. He deserves to know who he's been dating. And if he reacts badly, then he's not the person I believed him to be, and it's better to find out now." The restaurant Torres had chosen for their 6-month anniversary was intimate and elegant, with privacy that Adeline appreciated for the conversation ahead. Her heart fluttered beneath the burgundy dress she'd chosen for the occasion, her now naturally grown-out brown hair styled in soft waves around her shoulders. "You look beautiful tonight," Torres said after they'd ordered. "Though you seem nervous. Is everything all right?" Adeline took a steadying breath. "I need to tell you something important about me, about who I am." Torres set down his wine glass, giving her his full attention. "I'm listening. When we met 6 months ago, it wasn't by chance." She maintained eye contact despite her fear. "I came to the Black Diamond that night specifically because of you." His expression remained neutral, though she noticed a slight tension in his shoulders. "Go on." "My name is Adeline now, but I was born Ryder Collins." She paused, watching for recognition in his eyes.
The person who scratched your Ferrari in that parking lot.
Understanding dawned on his face, followed quickly by confusion.
You're saying you're the man who damaged my car? That you disguised yourself as a woman to avoid me?
Yes, and no. Her voice remained steady, despite the tremor in her hands beneath the table. I disguised myself as a woman to avoid potential retaliation, but what I discovered through that disguise was that I wasn't disguising myself at all. I was finally seeing myself clearly. Torres leaned back, processing her words.
You're transgender.
Yes. The simple acknowledgement felt both terrifying and freeing. Living as Adeline these past months has helped me understand who I truly am.
The disguise revealed the truth, as ironic as that sounds.
Torres was silent for several long moments, his expression unreadable. Adeline's heart hammered in her chest, preparing herself for anger, rejection, or worse. Finally, he spoke.
The car damage was minor. I'd forgotten about it weeks after it happened.
I know. You mentioned that once.
So you continued this charade even after knowing you were safe?
It stopped being a charade very quickly, she explained. Being Adeline felt right in a way nothing ever had before. I've started seeing a gender therapist, and I'm planning to begin hormone therapy soon. Torres took a sip of his wine, his dark eyes never leaving her face.
All these months, you've been afraid I'd discover your secret.
At first, yes. Later, I was afraid of losing you when you learned the truth. She reached across the table, not touching him, but offering her hand. I'm telling you now because what we have feels real to me, and real relationships can't be built on partial truths. He looked at her outstretched hand, then back to her face.
The woman I've come to care for, to love, has always been Adeline. Whether you were born Ryder is far less important to me than who you are now and who you're becoming.
Relief washed over her as he finally took her hand.
You're not angry?
About the car? No. About the initial deception. I understand survival. A small smile touched his lips. I'm more impressed by your courage, both in facing me that first night and in embracing your true self since then. Tears pricked at Adeline's eyes. I wasn't sure how you'd react. I've lived enough life to know authenticity when I see it, and you, Adeline, have become more authentic with each passing day. He squeezed her hand.
Though I am curious about one thing.
What's that?
Was any of it real in the beginning? Or was I just a means to an end?
She considered the question carefully.
In the very beginning, yes, you were someone to avoid. But from our first real conversation at the Black Diamond, something changed. I found myself drawn to you despite the circumstances that brought us together.
Torres nodded, apparently satisfied with her answer.
And now, where do we go from here?
That depends on you, she said. I'm going forward with my transition regardless. I hope you'll want to be part of my journey, but I'll understand if this is too complicated.
He laughed softly. My darling, I run a complex business empire that operates in gray areas of the law.
Complicated. Doesn't scare me.
His expression grew serious.
What matters is that you're the same woman I've been falling in love with these past months. Now, just more completely yourself.
6 months later, Adeline stood before the mirror in the apartment she now shared with Torres, examining her reflection. The hormone therapy had begun to soften her features further, creating subtle changes that aligned her outer appearance more closely with her inner self. Her brown hair had grown longer, now reaching past her shoulders in natural waves. The burgundy dress, the same one she'd worn when telling Torres the truth, hung in her closet alongside a wardrobe that was entirely her own. Ryder's clothes had been donated months ago, those remnants of a past life given to others who might need them.
Ready for dinner?
Torres asked, appearing in the doorway. His acceptance of her journey had never wavered, from accompanying her to medical appointments to defending her fiercely when a business associate had made a transphobic comment.
Almost,
she replied, applying a final touch of lipstick. Just thinking about how much has changed in a year.
All changes that were meant to be,
he said, stepping behind her to place his hands gently on her shoulders.
Though I still maintain scratching my car was the best mistake anyone's ever made.
She laughed, turning to face him.
From near disaster to self-discovery. Not the journey I expected.
The most meaningful journeys rarely are. He kissed her forehead.
Now, come on. Emma and her husband are meeting us at the restaurant, and you know how she hates waiting.
As they drove through the city streets, Adeline reflected on the strange series of events that had led her here. A moment of panic in a parking lot had set in motion a transformation far deeper than any disguise. The accident that could have ended her life had instead helped her begin it anew. In trying to become someone else to save himself, Ryder had discovered Adeline, the person she was always meant to be. The pink floral dress that had once felt like a costume now seemed like the first honest thing she'd ever worn. Every silky blouse, every pencil skirt since then had been another step toward authenticity. Emma had been right that first night, though neither of them fully understood it then. Adeline hadn't been born when she first put on that dress and wig. She had simply, finally, been revealed. The car that had once represented danger now sat in their garage alongside Torres's replacement Ferrari, a tangible reminder that sometimes the worst accidents lead to the most beautiful destinations. And as Torres reached across to take her hand, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing, Adeline smiled, secure in the knowledge that her journey, unexpected as it had been, had brought her exactly where she belonged.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!